He's becoming an excellent speaker, and it shows the passion and commitment that is absolutely necessary, I believe, to change the political scene in Scotland. One man who's already been through that, and I'm absolutely certain we'll be going through it again, is our next speaker. Would you welcome Tommy Sheridan?
Thanks very much, Jock. It's always a pleasure to come to the Kingdom of Fife to address political meetings. I managed to address, I think, about 12 in the course of the referendum campaign of 2014, and we always had very, very healthy turnouts, and we had a very healthy debate. I've got to say, when I listen to the facts and figures that Bill's brought to the meeting tonight, it is so refreshing to listen to somebody who's actually done the homework, who's actually done the research, who's able to provide you with the details of policies, because when you watch the TV and you listen to the radio and you listen to some of the nonsense you get from these mainstream parties, it really pisses me off that they have got so much research at their hands, they've got so much time, they've got so much money and resources, but when you're looking for simple answers about what X amount of tax is going to raise and what policy is going to actually do this, they just can't tell you. It's all bread tomorrow and jam the next day. There's no actual facts and figures, so it's very, very refreshing to hear the points that Bill's made about the Scottish service tax and the research that he's done in the Scottish service tax. Also want to mention my good friend Jock here. Jock and I go back a lot more years than we'd like to remember, Jock. The two of us, believe it or not, the two of us had full sets of hair when we used to know each other, and both our hairs were quite dark as well. Now we've got very little hair and it's mostly grey, but we've stuck together through thick and thin, and we're good socialists together, and we're determined that we're going to be building a socialist base here in Fife, and we hope that this election is going to get Bill Maher into that Parliament and give you a voice, in Holyrood. It's very important that we make this point. You're voting for Bill Maher to allow Bill to be your voice in Holyrood, not for Bill Maher to become Holyrood's voice in mid-Scotland and Fife. That's very, very important. So you're voting for somebody who's going to stand up for his class and fight against injustice in whatever guise it comes in. Whether it's in unemployment, whether it's in low pay, whether it's in discrimination, he will fight those causes because that's what he believes in, and that's what Solidarity believes in. My task tonight, brothers and sisters, is to touch on some of the priorities that we want to take in to the Scottish Parliament on behalf of those who are going to vote for us and support us. We're going to be launching our manifesto in Glasgow on Thursday, and that manifesto is going to contain 8 separate proposals that we aim to raise as private members' bills in the Holyrood Parliament. Number one, as far as we are concerned, is Indy Ref 2. We in Solidarity, we're not accepting the ifs or the buts. We in Solidarity believe that we were lied to, conned, cheated, bullied by the British establishment, who are desperate to stop Scotland becoming an independent free nation. They did everything that was required to try and frighten the people of Scotland into staying chained to that Westminster Parliament. And by the way, I remember mid-2013 when the opinion polls told us that support for independence was sitting at 26%. By September of 2014, support for independence had risen to 45%. Undoubtedly, the British ruling class were hired liars in Fleet Street and in the British Bias Corporation, undoubtedly they used what they had at their disposal to frighten sections of our community, particularly elderly. Particularly elderly. If you look at the figures for that referendum, what is absolutely clear is if you were young, you voted for independence. If you were working class, you voted for independence. But if you were elderly, you voted no. You voted no because you had those hired liars phoning up pensioners, producing leaflets, telling everyone, if you vote for independence, you'll lose your pension. You'll lose your pension. Wasn't just your pension you were going to lose. Apparently Tesco's was going to close. B&Q was going to leave Scotland. The Royal Bank of Scotland was going to leave Scotland. And of course we in the Yes movement made the point time after time. The only banks leaving Scotland and an independent Scotland would be the food banks, because we'd be closing them down. We'd be closing them down on the basis that we don't see food banks as a plus in society. We see food banks as a sign of failure in society. The welfare state was supposed to support people cradle to grave. The reality is the welfare state has been ripped asunder by the Tories of the red variety and of the blue variety. Let's forget for a moment that Blair and Brown were responsible for dismantling the welfare state as well. They set up the early ATOS. They introduced tuition fees. They cut away housing benefit. They paved the path for the bedroom tax. And of course they took us into an illegal war. And they sold off our public finances in the shape of the private finance initiative that they signed us up to all across Scotland. I've got the figures for most of their local authorities. I don't have the figures at my hand for Fife. But let me give you the figure for Glasgow. Glasgow City Council. I remember fighting against them when I was in the city chambers. They were telling me they were going to refurbish or build 25 new schools. And they were going to use this wonderful model called Private Finance Initiative. And I said, well, what is this? What's so wonderful about it? Well, what we're going to do is we'll get all these private companies and they'll provide us with the money and we'll then build all these schools. I said, well, how do you pay it back? We'll pay it back over a number of years. We'll pay it over 30 years. I says, well, why don't we just do it the way we do it all the time? The Public Works Loan Board, where you borrow the money to invest and build schools and hospitals and roads. That's what we've done. That's how we built the whole of society. The Public Works Loans Board. What is it? It's bonds. It's government bonds. You pay very, very low interest. You get companies who pay into these bonds and you get money for public works. That's what we've done for time immemorial. But wait a wee minute. That goes down as public debt. And Brown and Co thought, oh no, we don't want to come down as public debt. We want to hide it. We want to hide it as part of the European Union's membership requirement. You're not allowed to have too much public debt. So what we'll do is we'll get these private companies to give us the money and it doesn't appear in the public debt book. Brilliant, it's great. And I says, no, it's not great. Because they're wanting you to pay back 5, 6, 7 times more money than you're actually borrowing. It's actually the economics of the general George shop. How many of you've been to the high street, you see these big cracking TVs in the window. You say, oh, your beauty, £5 a week. Oh, brilliant. It's worth £300. You go in there, you sign up. Oh, you only pay £5. Well, look at the telly I've got. The problem is you've paid up for 5 years. You're paying £3,000 for a £300 telly. You think that's daft? We think it's daft that Wonga gets away with the interest rates that they can charge. And what we have is a government, not a private house, a government treating us like idiots. In Glasgow, they had a £225 million refurbishment programme. 225 million. 15 years later, We have paid, City of Glasgow, we've paid 1,300 million for a £225 million programme. Glasgow, the next 15 years, is still to pay back another £783.7 million for schools that were built 15 years ago. By the end of this programme, this £225 million worth of schools is going to cost us £2 billion. £2 billion. It's almost 9 times more money than we've actually used to refurbish the schools. And Brown thought he was a good chancellor. Is it any wonder they never seen the bloody crash coming, eh? These are the people who have sold us out as far as public finance is concerned, and these are the people that we have to stand up and say, see you lot, you owe us an apology for Iraq, you owe us an apology for PFI, you owe us an apology for opening up the welfare state to the privatisation that's happening here and now under the Tories. We, within Solidarity, we're saying loud and clear, Glasgow City Council, and we're the same in Fife, Glasgow City Council has passed a budget 2 weeks ago. They're going to cut another £133 million worth of jobs and services. Home helps, Meals on Wheels, music lessons for the Waynes, the very basics that people rely on, are going to get cut. Thousands of jobs are going to go. But don't worry, 3ED, the private consortium that was set up for these schools, don't you worry. We've got your £783 million here. Not on, is what we're saying in Solidarity. Every one of the PFI contracts in the whole of Scotland should be cancelled. Should be absolutely cancelled. And what we're saying, when people say to you, oh but Tommy, you know, Solidarity, this, Solidarity, where are you going to get the money to spend more in jobs and services? The money exists. There is still another 30 billion across Scotland to get paid in PFI. Cancel the PFIs. And instead of giving it to these private companies, spend it in local government jobs and services. There's your money. I've got a wee book in my bag. I was going to bring it out, but I'll try and remember it from memory. It's a wee case that highlights why this particular demand is so important. It's called Her Majesty's Government against Burma Oil Corporation. Very, very quick background, don't want to bore you too much with it. But in 1942, when Japan was involved in the Second World War, the British government gave permission for the British Navy and the Royal Air Force to destroy Burma Oil's resources that were in Japan as part of the war effort, as part of destroying the ability of the Japanese to have access to oil. The RAF and the Navy were given permission to destroy the oil fields that Burma Oil owned. 1946, Burma Oil said, well, wait a minute here, we're looking for reparation, we're looking for compensation. The war's over, you destroyed all our oil fields, you need to compensate us. And that went on for years and years, and it went to the House of Lords, and in 1951, the courts decided that Burma Oil was right, that the British government owed Burma Oil reparation and they had to compensate them for ruining their oil fields. The very next year, the government passed the War Reparations Bill and they said that there shall be no reparations for any company whose resources were destroyed during the war. In other words, the sovereignty, the ability of the Parliament to do what it likes, when it likes, was upheld by the Burma Oil versus Her Majesty's Government case. So when somebody says to you, oh but Tommy, you can't cancel the PFI, they're actually not right. Because governments can do what they want. They have got the sovereignty to do that. We here in Scotland have to have the backbone to stand up and say we're putting local government jobs and services before the private companies that are involved with the PFI projects. The reason we believe Indirect 2 is so important and has to be a priority is we believe it's unfinished business. We believe the people of Scotland have realised, those who voted against independence, we believe they've realised that they were conned, that they were lied to, that they were bullied. We want to put down a bill that facilitates a new referendum by 2018. By 2018. We believe between now and 2018 we can start from a base of 45 and we can get up to 60 as a minimum. If we could start with 26% and get up to 45, we believe we can start at 45 and get up to 60. We believe we've got the arguments now, because let's face it, look at some of the arguments that were used. Vote to stay within the union, to save the shipbuilding industry. Vote to stay within the union, to save the steelwork jobs. Vote to stay within the union, to save the bank jobs, to save the retail jobs. How many people believe all that now? That the shipbuilding jobs, steel jobs, retail jobs, banking jobs, they're all going. They're all going. Vote to stay within the union to save the pensions. And now we've got a pensions crisis within the union. The truth of the matter is the worm has turned. Those lies and those distortions will not work again. We are a party that's a socialist party. Unashamedly a socialist party. But we're also unashamedly a party that stands for an independent Scotland. We believe passionately that Scotland has the democratic right to run its own affairs. We have the democratic right to get the government we vote for. That's all we're asking for here. And for those who say, as some people do, oh but Tommy, 2018 is too early. It's too early, Tommy. Let's wait. Let's wait till the polls show a better majority, a higher majority. I've got to say to you, brothers and sisters, you know what? I don't actually speak for those who argue that we should wait. I speak for those who are the victims of austerity here and now. They can hardly wait to 2018, never mind wait longer than that. I think we've got to speak up for those on benefits, for those disabled, for those on low pay, for those who face job insecurity. We've got to speak up for our youngins that have got very little prospects as they leave school, they leave college, they leave university. Such is the contraction of the economy under these people. Such is the inequality that's built into this system, that if we don't break the chains of Westminster, that we're going to ruin a whole generation. I speak for those. Solidarity speaks for those with little voice, for those with little power. Those that have got a nice job and secure home and maybe they've got a decent wage, maybe they can afford to wait, maybe they can. But those at the bottom end of the pile can't afford to wait. And that's why 2018 for Indirect 2 is vital as far as solidarity is concerned. In 1999, I was elected to the Scottish Parliament. And I was elected on a number of issues, but one of the issues I was elected on was the abolition of pindons and warrant sales. Some of you may remember from your own experience, or maybe from family and friends, the shame of a warrant sale and what it meant. The threat of a warrant sale was enough to spur you to go to a money lender, to try and get the money. It doesn't matter you put yourself further in debt, it didn't matter. You had to avoid a warrant sale because it was embarrassing. It was shameful. The idea that sheriff officers would come to your house, take your furniture out of your house and then go and publicly sell it. and all your neighbours would know about it. It was an absolutely scandalous piece of legislation. It was used as part of the Highland clearances. It was used during the rent strikes of 1915 in Glasgow. It's been used time immemorial to frighten the working class. I was put in jail. I was put in jail in 1992 because we were contacted as part of the Anti-Poll Tax Federation. We were contacted by a lone parent in Greenock who, while she was out shopping, she came back to find a note in her letterbox to tell her to go to the local sheriff officers, Abernethy McIntyre, in the centre of Greenock, to pick up her new keys. Because while she was out, the sheriff officers that came with a locksmith opened her door, went into her house when she wasn't there, and they took her TV, her display cabinet, and her coffee table. This single parent couldn't afford to pay the poll tax. While she was out, the sheriff officers went in and took her furniture. And they intended to sell that furniture at a public warrant sale on the 1st of October 1991. This woman contacted me in tears, absolutely distraught, didn't know what to do. She was ashamed that the sheriff officers had came to her house, but she was also very, very angry. She didn't have the money to pay the blacksmith's bill, never mind to pay the poll tax, because that's what they did. They added the blacksmith's bill onto her bill, increased her debt. So we, in the anti-poll tax campaign, said, no, we're not going to allow this. We're going to organise, we're going to stop that warrant sale. We only got 7 days notice. But we organised, we put out leaflets, we went out with a loud tailer. It was supposed to take place up in Turnbull Street in Glasgow, just near to the Trongate. And what happened was, the day before, while I was in the house, I heard a letterbox. I thought, who's that? And I went out to I stayed in a tenement building, tap flat. And when I got out to the door in the hall, there was a big brown envelope through the door, and I looked at this brown envelope, rolled up, and it was some legal document, because it was signed by the court. And then I heard car doors down in the street, and I looked out the veranda, and there was a big red Peugeot 405, two guys with suits jumping into the motor. Turns out it was two sheriff officers. Now they were supposed to give me this, it was called an interim interdict. They were supposed to give me it in my hand, but they didn't bother, they just put it through the letterbox. And this interim interdict arrived the day before the warrant sale was due to tell me that I was banned. I'd been interdicted from interfering with the warrant sale. So, myself and probably $500 or $600 the next morning, we went to Turnbull Street and we went into that yard and we surrounded the blue transit van where that woman's furniture was. And we surrounded it with a ring of human solidarity. And we said to the sheriff officers, there's no sale taking place here today. Police came, quite a few of them came. Oh, you'll need to move away, you'll need to move away. We said, we're not moving away. Well, if you don't move away, we'll need to arrest you. Well, go ahead. You're going to need a lot better than what you've got there to arrest us. And there was a wee bit argy-bargy. And then the sheriff officers were instructed by the police to call off the warrant sale. The warrant sale was cancelled. And that single parent got her furniture back. I then took the interdict to it and I explained to the crowd what had happened. And I ripped it and threw it up in the air. Turns out it was quite an expensive wee bit of paper. I got 6 months in jail for it, but there you go. But I've got to say to you, brothers and sisters, that was in 1991 and I got put into jail in 1992. I've got to say to you, if I had the same decision to make tomorrow, I'd make the same decision, because what we have to do here, what we have to do sometimes is we have to be prepared to make a stand on issues, to stand up and be counted on issues. That was an issue of principle. Warrant sales were an archaic disaster, completely archaic, completely unfair, completely barbaric. They had to go. I was put in jail 1992, socked in jail 6 months. 1999, 7 years later, I stood in the Scottish Parliament and I didn't have my prison gear on, I had a suit on, and I moved the bill to abolish pindings and warrant sales. And within 12 months, we got them abolished. We got them changed. I introduced that bill 3 months after being elected. It was the first private members bill of the Scottish Parliament, so it made a bit of history. It's the first private members bill that was introduced. It's the first private members bill that was passed. Brothers and sisters, the reason I tell you that story is because we know what we're doing. We are no new kids on the block here. We are asking you to give us your support, but it's a bit like a job interview. When you go for a job interview, there might be loads of people that are applying for the job, as Bill said. That's what happens at Amazon. There may be lots of people who are qualified for the job. You've got to ask yourself, who's the best qualified for the job? Who do you trust most to do the job? I'm saying that if Solidarity is elected, that within 3 months of being elected, we will introduce a bill to facilitate Indie Ref 2 by 2018, because we know what we're doing. We know how to do it, we know what we're doing, and we know what's required. Yes, we'll introduce measures to oppose austerity cuts as well. We'll be arguing for cancelling a PFI. We'll be demanding a ban on fracking. We'll be demanding that we remove Trident nuclear weapons from Scotland. We'll be demanding that we stand up and be counted, and instead of just giving us words of opposition to cuts, we actually start organising from Holyrood to all of the local authorities, all the local authority trade unions, all the local authority community groups, pensioners groups, children's groups. We need to organise a council of war. A council of war that takes on Westminster. This is a British Parliament that only got one representative out of 59. One representative is all they've got representing Scotland. How dare they tell us that we've got to pass on cuts so they can cut the taxes of the rich, so they can turn a blind eye. They can turn a blind eye to the tax evasion for the big multinational corporations, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google, whether it's Starbucks, whether it's Facebook. Turn a blind eye, turn a patch when it comes to the multinational corporations evading their tax. But don't you dare be on benefit and not be able to answer every question. Don't you dare be on benefit and take a wee session on a building site or in a hairdresser's and get caught, because you'll end up in jail. Because that's the hypocrisy of this system. If you're on benefit and you get caught taking a wee shift because your income's so low, you'll end up in jail. But if you're a millionaire and you get caught tax evading, don't worry, you'll get a knighthood. You'll get a knighthood, Sir Gary Barlow, Sir Philip Green. All the tax evaders in the world, they don't get treated the way the working class do. They get special treatment. Well, we are against that, brothers and sisters. We are saying loud and clear to Mr. Cameron, when he turns round a couple of weeks ago and says, I'm not absolutely sure where all the sources of that money came from. Well, Mr. Cameron, if you'd said that at a local dole office, you'd have been sanctioned. You'd have been sanctioned with your benefits. That's the reality. We have to say loud and clear that we are not having this hypocrisy any longer. We do not have a problem in this country of poverty. We have a problem of riches. That's the problem. The problem is not a lack of money. The problem is that the money is so acutely owned and controlled by a tiny wee minority at the top. We in Solidarity want to share the wealth that exists in order that everybody gets a share. Everybody qualifies for a decent quality and standard of life. This isn't rocket science. Think about this. I was fortunate to go to Stirling University away back in 1981. And I did my first joint honours degree, economics and politics. I learned an economic theory that served me well. It's called the marginal propensity to consume. And it's quite highfalutin. But what does it really mean? It means economically, if you give more money to someone